She was found wearing bunny ears in an alleyway behind a nightclub in Hackney, East London. It was spring of 1982. The victim, a 24-year-old woman. Cause of death, undetermined. The press barely noticed. The police called it an isolated tragedy. But then, 2 years later, it happened again. Another woman, another costume, another pose that looked too specific to be random. And still no one made the connection. No press conference, no warnings, no manhunt, just silence. And over the years, more victims would follow. All dressed, all posed, all buried under headlines that never told the full story. They call it the Bunny Girl Murders. And if you've never heard of them, that's exactly what someone wanted. She was 24. Her name was Angela Simmons, a part-time waitress who worked nights at a jazz bar in Hackney and occasionally modeled for student photographers. On the morning of April 4th, 1982, her body was found behind a nightclub just off Mare Street. The scene was strange. Angela was laid flat, her arms by her sides. Her clothes had been partially removed but not torn. Makeup still intact, and placed near her shoulder, almost like a prop, was a plastic bunny ear headband. One side snapped, no fingerprints on it. The coroner listed the cause of death as undetermined. Toxicology came back negative. No drugs, no alcohol. There were bruises along the neck, but not consistent with strangulation. And there were no signs of sexual assault. Police treated the case as a suspicious death, but did not open a homicide investigation. Within a week, the story disappeared from local press. No CCTV, no suspects, no follow-up. Angela's family asked if the bunny ears meant something. Police told them it was probably a joke, a sick coincidence. But 2 years later, that same detail would come back. And this time, it wouldn't be as easy to ignore. On May 23, 1984, the body of Lorraine McHale, aged 27, was discovered in a narrow service lane near Upper Street in Islington, just 6 miles from where Angela Simmons was found. She'd been missing for 3 days. Lorraine worked at a theater bar. She was last seen leaving a costume party at a club called the Rabbit Room, a fringe venue that hosted burlesque shows and themed nights. Her body was found posed, flat on her back, arms at her sides, wearing a cocktail dress and white fishnet stockings. Placed neatly on her chest, a pair of gloves shaped like paws, the kind sold at novelty costume shops. Police noted the gloves, but dismissed them as part of her outfit. No signs of robbery, no signs of sexual assault, no drugs in her system, no signs of struggle. And just like Angela Simmons, bruising on the neck that didn't match classic strangulation. The case was ruled unexplained with no criminal finding. But here's the detail that didn't go public. One of Lorraine's earrings was missing, the same side as Angela's. Both victims missing a single earring. That fact was never released to the press, only recorded in internal reports. 2 women, 2 years apart, same city, same type of death. And now, a second piece of costume left at the scene. Still no homicide inquiry, no press coverage, no warnings issued. But to someone out there, this wasn't coincidence. It was ritual. 3 years later, August 15th, 1987, a 22-year-old art student named Michelle Dunning was found dead behind an abandoned printworks near Cold Harbor Lane in Brixton. She had no known ties to nightlife. She wasn't part of any club scene. But on the night before her death, she'd attended a friend's birthday party themed around vintage cabaret. Photos from that night showed her wearing a lace choker, black heels, and this is important, a custom-made bunny mask made of velvet and sequins. When her body was found, the mask wasn't on her. It was placed about 6 feet away, set upright against the wall, as if someone wanted it to be found. Michelle's body was again posed. Same flat back positioning. Same head turned slightly to the left. Same eerie calm. The post-mortem found traces of adhesive behind her ears, possibly theatrical glue, the kind used to secure costume accessories. But no DNA was recovered from the mask. No wounds, no drugs, no theft, no signs of a struggle. Just one more woman found arranged like a mannequin, with a piece of costume set beside her. The case was labeled suspicious, but police didn't link it to any previous deaths. Another cold file. Another silence. 3 women in 5 years. All found within the same 10-mile radius. All with unexplained injuries. All connected by costume. And still no task force. No suspect's profile. No public notice. But inside the Metropolitan Police archives, a name had started to circulate among a few skeptical officers. The Bunny Killer. Unofficial, unproven, but whispered all the same. His name was Detective Chief Inspector Malcolm Greaves, veteran officer, old school, known for hating paperwork but remembering faces. By 1988, Greaves had transferred into a small unit handling cold cases across inner London boroughs. That's when the file for Lorraine McHale crossed his desk, and something caught his eye. The crime scene photos, the gloves, the body placement. It reminded him of Angela Simmons, a case he'd reviewed years earlier but never closed in his mind. And then came the Brixton file. Michelle Dunning. Same pose, same lack of struggle. And again, a costume detail carefully left behind. Greaves didn't believe in coincidence. He began compiling the 3 cases side by side, mapping the locations, lining up autopsy reports. And what emerged was a pattern that couldn't be ignored. Each victim found in spring or summer. Each posed with a theatrical item nearby. Each missing one accessory, a glove, an earring, or a piece of jewelry. He wrote a memo to the Serious Crime Review Group, a formal request to consider a potential serial pattern, even without a confirmed homicide ruling. But that memo never led to a case file. Internal correspondence marked the request as theory-based with no forensic cohesion. In other words, too speculative. Greaves kept pushing. He even visited Michelle's mother in person to ask about the mask glue. But by 1991, Greaves was forced into early retirement following budget cuts. 3 months later, he died in a car accident on the A13 near Dagenham. His personal case notes never recovered. The 3 cases were shelved once again, but whispers about the Bunny Killer didn't disappear. In April of 1994, nearly 3 years after the death of DCI Malcolm Greaves, an old photography studio in Soho was scheduled for demolition. The place had once been called Lunar Room Studios, known in the 80s for shooting promotional images for London's underground clubs. It had long since closed. But during demolition, construction workers found something strange behind a bricked-up basement wall. A sealed wooden crate. Inside, over 40 Polaroid photographs, some in poor condition, some shockingly well preserved. The women in the photos were dressed in various costumes, lace bodices, masquerade masks, vintage lingerie, animal ears. Several appeared fully conscious, others less so. One photo in particular was flagged by a junior officer called to the scene. The subject's costume, pose and facial structure closely matched Lorraine McHale, the woman found in Islington 10 years prior. But that photo wasn't logged into open case files. Instead, it was quietly submitted to the Evidence Management Unit. Within weeks, the crate and all its contents were marked "Archived, no criminal link." But not before a single contact sheet was leaked to a former freelance crime journalist named Sandra Lee. She ran a one-page spread in a now-defunct alt weekly under the headline, "Underground Studios, Dead Girls, Art or Evidence?" The Metropolitan Police made no comment. Lunar Room Studios was demolished the following month. Whatever was in that box, gone. Whatever might have connected it to 3 women found posed and costumed throughout London, buried. But the name Bunny Killer had now made it outside police walls. And for the first time, it wasn't just a theory. It was a possibility. By the mid-90s, 3 women had been found dead, all posed, all connected by costume. And now one of them potentially appearing in a photograph discovered inside a shuttered Soho studio. But no public statement was ever made. No case was reopened. And attempts to file Freedom of Information requests for details about Angela Simmons, Lorraine McHale, or Michelle Dunning were quietly denied. The official reason: files contain third-party material and cannot be disclosed. For victims of unsolved deaths, that wording raised eyebrows. In 2 separate cases, family members reported being contacted by anonymous callers who warned them to let it rest. Sandra Lee, the freelance journalist who first linked the studio crate to Lorraine McHale, claimed her apartment was broken into in 1996. Nothing was stolen, but the envelope containing her original prints was missing. When she contacted the Metropolitan Police to file a report, she was told the original officer she'd spoken to in the Lunar Room discovery was no longer reachable. And in 2 of the 3 cases, physical evidence was listed as missing during transfer. That included the broken bunny headband and the velvet mask. By the early 2000s, the term "bunny girl murders" had become a whisper in online forums. It was treated like an urban legend, something made up by conspiracy theorists. But there was one consistent detail that surfaced across every forum, Reddit thread, and blog post. The police knew. They knew the victims weren't isolated. They knew the objects weren't random. And they did nothing. Whether out of fear, politics, or protection, the silence was not accidental. It was enforced. In February of 2025, a user on Reddit's Unsolved Mysteries uploaded a post titled, "Found this in my dad's attic. Anyone know what it means?" Attached was a scanned Polaroid photo. A woman sitting in a folding chair, eyes closed, wearing a black satin corset, and on her head a velvet bunny mask, just like the one worn by Michelle Dunning. The post exploded. Within hours, amateur sleuths had geolocated the wallpaper pattern behind her to a 1980s photo studio in Soho. Several users compared the woman's facial features to a missing person listed in 1986, a 23-year-old named Rosalind Fay, last seen leaving a Halloween party in Camden. That case was never linked to any of the previous bunny girl deaths until now. Commenters pointed out the uncanny similarities, the makeup style, the seated pose, and most disturbingly, a single earring missing from her left ear. Just like Angela, just like Lorraine. By the next morning, the post had been removed, the account deleted. But screenshots circulated across Reddit, TikTok, and Discord true crime groups. A mod from Our London History later confirmed they'd received a takedown notice from an external legal source. And by March, searches for Bunny girl murders were trending across the UK and Ireland. Suddenly, a cold case that had been dismissed for over 4 decades was now back in public focus. But this time, the leads weren't coming from Scotland Yard. They were coming from people with usernames, timelines, and receipts. The question was no longer did it happen. It was, how many victims were there that we still don't know about? As of June 2025, the Bunny Girl murders remain officially unconnected. No case file links Angela Simmons, Lorraine McHale, Michelle Dunning, or the possible fourth woman, Rosalind Fay. The Metropolitan Police have issued no formal statements, no suspects, and several of the original reports, according to FOI rejection letters, are still considered sensitive. The Polaroids discovered at Lunar Room Studios, officially lost. The earring evidence never logged publicly. The internal memo written by DCI Malcolm Greaves in 1988, still unreleased. But outside official channels, the picture is shifting. Reddit sleuths have now linked at least 6 disappearances between 1982 and 1991 to costume-themed events within a 10-mile zone in central London. And amateur investigations have uncovered photographs, flyers, and missing persons ads that bear uncanny similarities in timeline and appearance. Yet no task force has been launched. The story remains a ghost in the press. No true crime docuseries. No podcast deep dive. Just fragments. Just patterns. Just silence. But silence doesn't mean nothing happened. It means something happened, and someone didn't want it followed. They called it coincidence. 3 women, posed, costumed, forgotten. But when someone shows you the same scene 3 times, with the same message left behind, that's not random. That's a signature. And signatures don't fade. We may never know who left the bunny ears by Angela's body, or why Lorraine's gloves were folded like props, or why Michelle's mask was gently placed but never worn. And now, with Polaroids lost, witnesses dead, and records sealed, the answers may be gone, but the pattern remains, and patterns don't lie. If you recognize the photo, the mask, the name Rosalind Fay says something. Even now, especially now, because the killer may be gone, but the story isn't. Someone dressed their victims like they were part of a show. But this wasn't art. It was something else, something darker. And someone somewhere still remembers what they saw, what they did, and why no one ever talked. The Bunny Girl murders, unsolved, unacknowledged, and maybe not over.